The morning sun was rising over Seoul when the sky turned dark. Minyu was drinking his coffee near the window when he saw it. At first he thought it was a cloud, but clouds do not have sharp edges. Clouds do not block the sun like a giant hand. He put down his cup and walked closer to the glass. His heart began to beat faster. Across the city, millions of people stopped what they were doing. They looked up. They pointed. They screamed. Children grabbed their mothers. Old men dropped their bags. The shadow grew larger and larger until it covered the entire city. They were ships, hundreds of them. Each one was bigger than any building Minyu had ever seen. They floated in the sky without making a sound, black and terrible against the morning light. Their metal bodies were covered with weapons that pointed down at the earth like angry fingers. Minyu's phone rang. It was the World Council. They needed him immediately. He was 53 years old. He had spent his whole life talking to people, solving problems and finding peace where others saw only war. He was Earth's chief ambassador, and today would be the hardest day of his life. The council building was full of chaos when he arrived. Generals shouted at each other. Scientists ran back and forth with tablets and papers. On the big screen, news channels showed the same images from every country. The alien ships were everywhere, hanging over every major city on Earth. Then the message came. Every screen on the planet went black for a moment. Then a face appeared. It was not human. The skin was gray and rough like stone. The eyes were deep red with no white parts at all. The mouth was wide and full of small, sharp teeth. When it spoke, the voice was cold and empty. People of Earth, I am Supreme Commander of the Kel Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender completely or you will be destroyed. You have one rotation of your planet to decide. There will be no second chance. The screen went black again. For a long moment, nobody in the council room moved. Then everyone started talking at once. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to pray. General, a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes, slammed his hand on the table. We have nuclear weapons, he said. We can hurt them. And then what? Asked a young scientist with short black hair and glasses. Their ships are more advanced than anything we have. If we attack them, they will destroy us in minutes. So we just give up? Asked angrily. I did not say that, replied. Minyu listened to all of them. He looked at the faces around the room. He saw fear. He saw anger. He saw hopelessness. But somewhere deep inside himself he felt something else. An idea. A crazy, impossible idea. He raised his hand. The room slowly became quiet. What if we do something they do not expect? He said softly. Everyone looked at him. They have come here with weapons, Minyu continued. They expect us to fight or to beg. Every other species they have met probably did one of those things. But what if we do neither? What if we welcome them? The room exploded with voices again. People called him crazy. They said he had lost his mind. But Minyu waited patiently until they were quiet again. Think about it, he said. They have traveled across the stars. They have conquered many worlds. They have seen every kind of fear and every kind of resistance. But have they ever seen kindness? Have they ever been greeted as guests instead of enemies? Shook his head. You want to invite them to dinner while they point guns at our heads? Yes, Minyu said simply. That is exactly what I want to do. Looked at him with wide eyes. Then slowly she began to nod. It might work, she said, or at least it might confuse them, and confusion gives us time. The council argued for 3 more hours. In the end, they had no better plan. Fighting was suicide. Surrender was slavery. Minyu's idea was strange and probably foolish, but it was the only thing they had not tried. They prepared a small shuttle. It would carry 4 people to the alien flagship. Minyu would lead the group, would come to study the aliens. A cultural historian with a gentle face and calm voice would help with communication. And a young soldier with bright eyes and a quick smile would come as a sign that even their military wanted peace. They brought no weapons. Instead, they filled the shuttle with gifts, paintings from famous Korean artists, music from orchestras around the world, boxes of food, rice cakes, fruit, and tea, and a simple handwritten letter that said, "We would be honored if you would join us for a meal." As the shuttle lifted off, Minyu looked down at Seoul. The streets were full of people watching. Some were crying. Some were waving. A little girl held up a sign that said "Good luck" in bright red letters. Minyu's hands were shaking. His mouth was dry. He was more afraid than he had ever been in his life. But he also felt something else. He felt proud. Proud that humanity's answer to death was not hatred but hope. The alien flagship grew larger in the window. It was even more terrifying up close. Minyu could see the weapon ports, each one big enough to swallow their tiny shuttle. He could see lights moving behind dark windows. He could feel the power of the ship like a weight pressing on his chest. "Are you sure about this?" asked quietly. Minyu looked at the young man. He saw the fear in his eyes but also the trust. "No," Minyu admitted. "I am not sure about anything, but I know that if we are going to die today, I want our last act to be something beautiful, something that shows who we really are." The shuttle entered the docking bay of the flagship. Through the window, they could see rows of alien soldiers standing in perfect lines. Their armor was black and their weapons were ready. Their red eyes watched the small human ship like predators watching prey. The door of the shuttle opened with a soft hiss. Minyu took a deep breath. He picked up the tray of tea and rice cakes. He looked at his team and nodded. Then he stepped out into the unknown, carrying nothing but gifts and a smile. Thousands of alien soldiers stared at him in complete silence. They had expected weapons. They had expected surrender. They had expected fear. They had not expected this. And for the first time in 300 years of conquest, the soldiers of the Kel Empire did not know what to do. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the humans on his viewing screen. His clawed hands were tight behind his back. His red eyes did not blink. In 300 years of war, he had seen many things. He had seen planets burn. He had seen entire species beg for mercy on their knees. He had seen brave warriors charge at his armies with nothing but sticks and stones. But he had never seen anything like this. The 4 humans stood in his docking bay, surrounded by 2,000 of his best soldiers. Any normal creature would be frozen with fear. But the older human, the one they called Minyu, was smiling. He was actually smiling. And he was holding a tray of food like he was welcoming old friends to his home. "What trick is this?" said to himself. His second-in-command stood beside him. She was tall and strong, with scars across her gray face from many battles. She had been with for 50 years. She had never seen him confused before. "Perhaps it is a bomb," she suggested, "hidden in the food." Shook his head slowly. "Our scanners found nothing. No weapons, no poison, no technology of any kind, just food and art." "Then they are fools," said. "Perhaps," replied, but something in his voice was uncertain. He gave the order to bring the humans to him. The walk through the flagship took a long time. The hallways were dark and cold, lit only by red lights along the floor. Everywhere they looked, the humans saw weapons, armor, and the hard faces of Kel's soldiers, tried to keep his hands steady, whispered prayers under her breath, studied everything with the sharp eyes of a scientist. But Minyu kept smiling. He nodded politely to every soldier they passed, as if he was walking through a friendly neighborhood instead of an enemy warship. Finally, they reached the command room. It was a massive space, filled with screens and control panels. At the center stood, looking down at them from a raised platform. He was taller than any human, almost 3 meters, and his armor made him look like a monster from ancient stories. "You are either very brave or very stupid," said. His voice echoed through the room. Minyu bowed low, the traditional Korean bow of deep respect. The other humans did the same. "Great Commander," Minyu said, "we come in peace. We bring gifts from our world. We hope you will accept our hospitality." Stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was cold and sharp like breaking glass. "Hospitality," he repeated. "I threaten to destroy your world and you offer me hospitality." "Yes," Minyu said simply. "In my culture, we believe that every stranger is a guest, even one who comes with weapons. We believe that sharing food and drink can turn enemies into friends." Came down from his platform. He walked slowly around the humans, studying them like they were strange animals. He stopped in front of who was the smallest of the group. "You," he said, "you are a scientist. Tell me, what do you see when you look at me?" Swallowed hard. She pushed her glasses up her nose and looked directly into his red eyes. "I see someone who is tired," she said quietly. The room became very still. Even the guards seemed to hold their breath. "Tired," repeated. His voice was dangerous. "Yes," continued, her voice shaking but honest. "Your soldiers stand perfectly. Their weapons are ready. Their armor is clean, but their eyes are empty. They look like people who have been fighting for so long that they have forgotten why." Moved forward, her hand on her weapon, but raised his hand to stop her. "Go on," he said too. "I am a scientist," said. "I study life, and life needs more than just survival. It needs purpose. It needs joy. Your empire is powerful, but I do not see any joy here. Only duty, only war." Said nothing for a long time. The silence was so heavy that Minyu could hear his own heartbeat. Then turned to look at one of his young soldiers. The soldier's name was. He was barely an adult by Kel standards, with smooth gray skin and eyes that had not yet become completely hard. Said, "Take the humans to the guest quarters, guard them, watch them, report everything they do." "Yes, Commander," said quickly. As the humans were led away, watched them go. Minyu turned back once and bowed again. Then the doors closed behind them. Stepped closer to, "Why did you not kill them?" "Because I want to understand them," replied. "In all our conquests, no one has ever reacted this way. They should be afraid. They should be fighting. Instead, they bring us tea and cake." He shook his head slowly. "There is something wrong with these creatures, or perhaps something right." In the guest quarters stood guard while the humans unpacked their gifts. The room was small and cold, with metal walls and hard beds, but Minyu acted like it was a palace. "Please," Minyu said too, "will you share some food with us?" Stiffened, "I am your guard, not your guest." "Why not both?" asked gently. She held out a rice cake with a warm smile. "This is sweet, I think you might like it." Looked at the rice cake. He looked at the door. He looked back at the humans. Slowly, carefully, he took the small white cake and put it in his mouth. His red eyes widened. "It is good," he said, sounding surprised. Laughed, "Of course it is good. My grandmother makes the best rice cakes in all of Korea." He pulled out his phone and showed a picture. "See, this is her, and this is my little sister, and this is our dog." Stared at the picture. He had never seen anything like it. Kel children were taken from their parents at birth and raised in military schools. Family was a word he knew but did not understand. "What is it like," asked quietly, "to have a family?" Smile became softer. He sat down on the floor and gestured for to join him. After a moment of hesitation, the young alien guard sat down too. "Let me tell you," said. And as the hours passed, something impossible began to happen in that small, cold room on an alien warship. A human and a Kel sat together, sharing food and stories. The guard forgot to guard. The prisoner forgot to be afraid. Outside, the fleet still pointed its weapons at Earth. The deadline still approached. Millions of humans still waited to learn if they would live or die. But in that small room, two young people from different worlds discovered something that war could never teach them. They discovered that they were not so different after all. On Earth, the waiting was the hardest part. General stood in the underground military base, surrounded by screens and buttons and weapons that could end the world. His finger rested near the launch codes. 20 nuclear missiles were ready to fly. They would not save humanity, but they would hurt the enemy. They would prove that humans did not die quietly. He was a soldier. Fighting was all he knew. And every minute that passed without news from Minyu made his hand move closer to those buttons. "Sir," a young officer said, "we have received a message from the fleet." Turned quickly, "What does it say?" "The deadline has been extended, 24 more hours." Frowned, extended, why? Nobody knew the answer. Far above Earth, on the Kel flagship, Minyu was asking for something unusual. He stood before Commander with his hands clasped together respectfully. "I would like to show you something," Minyu said. "A live broadcast from our planet. I want you to see how our people are spending what might be their final hours." Narrowed his red eyes. "You want me to see your people crying, begging, fighting each other for food and water?" "Perhaps," Minyu said, "or perhaps you will see something else." Was curious despite himself. He ordered his officers to connect to Earth's communication systems. A massive screen flickered to life in the command room. What they saw made every Kel in the room stop moving. The screen showed Seoul first. The streets were full of people, but they were not running. They were not hiding. They were dancing. Musicians played on every corner. Families sat together eating meals. Children ran through the crowds with colorful ribbons in their hands. Giant banners hung from buildings with words painted in bright colors. "Welcome to Earth." The view changed to Tokyo. Same thing. People gathered in parks, singing songs together. Old women handed out food to strangers. Young people held hands and looked up at the alien ships in the sky, not with fear but with wonder. The view changed again. New York, London, Cairo, Mumbai, Sydney, every city on Earth told the same story. Humans were not preparing for war. They were not falling into chaos. They were celebrating. "What is this?" demanded. "What trick are you playing?" "No trick," Minyu said softly. "This is who we are." Stepped forward, her voice was gentle but clear. "Commander, you must understand something about humans. We have faced death many times, diseases that killed millions, wars that burned whole countries, natural disasters that destroyed everything we built. And every time we found the same truth: fear does not save us. Hate does not save us. Only love saves us. Only hope." She pointed at the screen. "These people know they might die tomorrow. They know your weapons could destroy them in seconds, but they have chosen not to spend their last hours in darkness. They have chosen to be together, to celebrate the lives they have lived, to show the universe what humanity means." Watched the screen in silence. He saw a little girl in Paris putting flowers in her hair. He saw an old man in Beijing playing a violin on a street corner. He saw teenagers painting a mural on a wall, a picture of human hands reaching up toward the stars. Leaned close to, "This is madness," she whispered. "They face extinction and they throw a party." "Yes," replied slowly. "It is madness, but it is also beautiful." He had not used that word in a very long time. In the corner of the room, Young watched the screen with wet eyes. He did not understand why water was coming from his eyes. Kel did not cry. Crying was weakness. But something about those images, those happy faces looking up at death with smiles, broke something inside him. Later that night, returned to the human quarters. Was sitting alone, looking at pictures on his phone. "Your people are strange," said. Looked up and smiled. "I know. You should be afraid. You should be preparing to fight. Instead you dance and sing." Nodded slowly. "Yes, we should probably be very afraid, and we are. But my grandmother always told me something. She said that fear is like a dark room. The more you sit in it, the bigger it gets. But if you light one small candle, even the biggest darkness becomes smaller." He showed his phone. On the screen was a video from Seoul. His mother was there holding a candle. His little sister was beside her, waving at the sky. "My family is probably terrified right now," said quietly. "But they are not hiding. They are standing together with millions of other people, holding lights against the darkness. That is what humans do. We hold on to each other. We find hope even when there is no reason for hope." Sat down slowly. "The Kel do not have hope. We have only duty. We conquer because we must. We fight because we must. There is no joy in it. There has not been joy for many generations." "That sounds lonely," said. Nodded. "It is. I never knew how lonely until I met you." The two young people sat together in silence for a while. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. The weapons of the fleet waited. The deadline approached. But in that small room, something was changing. Elsewhere on the ship, could not sleep. She walked through the dark corridors, her guard too tired to follow closely. She found herself near the medical bay and looked through the window. Inside, she saw, the fierce warrior was sitting alone, watching a recording on a small screen. It was the broadcast from Earth, played it over and over again. Her face was hard, but her hands were shaking. Understood then. The Kel were not monsters, they were lost. They had been fighting for so long that they had forgotten what they were fighting for. They had power but no peace. They had victory but no happiness. And now, faced with a species that chose love over fear, the cracks were beginning to show. Returned to her room and found Minyu awake. "I think it is working," she said quietly. "I think they are starting to doubt." Minyu looked out the small window at the distant blue glow of Earth. "Doubt is the first step," he said. "Now we must give them something to believe in, something better than conquest, something worth living for." He closed his eyes and thought of the millions of people on Earth, holding their candles against the darkness. "We are lighting a fire," he whispered. "Now we must see if it spreads." The summons came in the middle of the night. Minyu was pulled from sleep by who looked nervous and confused. "The commander wants to see you. Alone. Now." Minyu dressed quickly and followed the young guard through the dark corridors of the flagship. The ship was quiet at this hour. Most of the crew was sleeping. The only sounds were the hum of machines and the echo of their footsteps on metal floors. They stopped at a door that Minyu had not seen before, pressed a button, and the door slid open. "He is inside," said. "I must wait here." Minyu nodded and stepped through. The room was small and simple. It had a bed, a desk, and one small window that looked out at the stars. Commander sat near the window with his back to the door. His armor was gone. Without it, he looked smaller, older, more tired. "Close the door," said without turning around. Minyu did as he was told. He stood in silence, waiting. Finally turned. His face was different now. The cold mask was gone. In its place was something Minyu had not expected to see. Pain. Deep, old pain that had been hidden for many years. "I cannot sleep," said. "I have not slept well since we arrived at your world." He pointed to a chair. "Sit." Minyu sat. "I have a question for you," continued. "And I want an honest answer. No diplomacy, no clever words, just truth." "I will try," Minyu said. Leaned forward. His red eyes were intense but not angry. "Are you afraid of death?" Minyu thought carefully before answering. "Yes," he said finally. "I am afraid. I am terrified, actually. Every time I close my eyes, I see your ships burning my home. I see my daughter and her children screaming. I see everything I love turn to ash." Nodded slowly. "Then why do you smile? Why do you bring me tea and cakes when you know I might kill you tomorrow? Why do your people dance when they should be crying?" Minyu was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. "Because fear is not the worst thing. The worst thing is losing who you are. My people have learned this lesson many times. In our history, we faced terrible enemies, armies that wanted to destroy us, diseases that could have killed us all, and every time we had a choice. We could let fear change us into something ugly, or we could stay true to ourselves even if it meant dying. He looked directly at. I would rather die as a man who offered kindness than live as a man who gave in to hate. Was silent for a long time. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. But this laugh was different from before. It was soft and sad, like the sound of old memories. You are a strange creature, he said. I have conquered 47 worlds. I have ended civilizations that existed for 10,000 years, but I have never met anyone like you. He stood and walked to the window. The blue light of Earth reflected in his eyes. I am going to tell you something, he said. Something that only a few Kel know. Something that would get me killed if my masters heard it. Minyu waited. The Kel Empire is dying. The words hung in the air like smoke. We have been expanding for 300 years, continued. We have taken resources from every world we conquered, but it was never enough. Our population grew too fast, our became deserts, our people began to starve. He turned to face Minyu. We do not conquer because we want to, we conquer because we must. If we stop, we die. Then you are slaves, Minyu said quietly, slaves to your own empire. Flinched at the word, but he did not deny it. My orders are clear, he said. Take your planet's resources, enslave your people, use them to feed our dying worlds. He paused. But for the first time in my life, I do not want to follow my orders. Why, Minyu asked. Looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death. Because your people showed me something I had forgotten existed. When I watched your world today, I saw children laughing. I saw old people dancing. I saw families holding each other. I saw life, real life, not just survival but joy. His voice became rough. We Kel have not felt joy in generations. We have only duty and fear and endless war. We have forgotten why we wanted to survive in the first place. Minyu stood slowly. He walked to the window and stood beside the commander, looking out at the stars together. There is another way, he said. Your people need resources. My people need knowledge. What if we worked together instead of fighting? What if we shared what we have? Shook his head. The High Council would never allow it. They would call me a traitor. They would execute me and send another commander to finish the job. Perhaps, Minyu said. Or perhaps your people are as tired of war as you are. Perhaps they are waiting for someone brave enough to choose a different path. Turned to look at him. You truly believe that? I believe that change starts with one person, Minyu replied. One person who decides that the old way is not the only way. One person who is willing to take a risk. He put his hand on shoulder, a gesture that would have been unthinkable 2 days ago. You could be that person, Commander. You could give your people something they have not had in 300 years. Hope. Looked at the human hand on his shoulder. He did not pull away. Hope, he repeated, as if testing a word he had never spoken before. They stood together in silence, two enemies who were no longer quite enemies, looking at a future that was not yet written. In another part of the ship, made a discovery. She had found private recordings. The fierce warrior had been secretly recording everything since the humans arrived. But these recordings were not meant for the High Council. They were being sent to the Kel, to ordinary people, to families and workers and children. Was not gathering evidence to destroy humanity. She was gathering evidence to save it. Smiled in the darkness. The cracks were spreading, and soon the whole empire might break open. The deadline came with the rising sun. On Earth, billions of people watched the sky. They held their breath. They held each other. In Seoul, mother stood in the street with her daughter, looking up at the dark shapes that blocked the clouds. In New York, old men sat in coffee shops, waiting. In Tokyo, children pressed their faces against windows, wondering if today would be their last. General sat alone in the command center, his hand on the nuclear launch button. His eyes were fixed on the clock. 3 minutes left, 2 minutes, 1. The clock reached 0. Nothing happened. Waited, his heart pounded in his chest. Still nothing. No explosions, no fire raining from the sky, just silence. Then his communication screen flickered to life. It was Minyu's face, tired but smiling. "General," Minyu said, "please stand down. The situation has changed." "Changed?" said. "Changed how?" "We have a chance, a real chance, but I need you to trust me." Looked at the launch button. He thought about his family. He thought about revenge. He thought about all the reasons he had to fight. Then he slowly lifted his hand away from the button. "I trust you," he said quietly. High above Earth, Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship. His officers watched him nervously. They knew something was different. Their leader had not slept in days. He had spent hours talking with the humans. And now, as the deadline passed, he had not given the order to attack. "Commander," said carefully, "the deadline has passed. The High Council expects action." Turned to look at her. His eyes were clear for the first time in years. "I know what the Council expects," he said, "but I have decided to give them something else." He pressed a button on his command panel. His face appeared on every screen in the fleet, on every ship orbiting Earth. "Soldiers of the Kel Empire," he said, "hear me now. For 300 years we have conquered, we have destroyed. We have taken everything from everyone because we were told there was no other choice. We were told that the strong must dominate the weak. We were told that peace was weakness." He paused and looked out the window at Earth, that small blue jewel floating in the darkness. "We were wrong." The fleet was completely silent. 10,000 soldiers listened without moving. "I have seen something on this world that changed me," continued. "I have seen people face death with dignity. I have seen them choose love over fear. I have seen them welcome their enemies with open arms. These humans are not weak. They are stronger than we have ever been. Because true strength is not about weapons or power. True strength is about hope." He stood taller. His voice grew stronger. "I will not destroy this world. I will not enslave these people. Instead, I am proposing something new, a truce, an alliance, a chance for both our species to learn from each other and grow together." The fleet erupted into chaos. Some captains shouted in anger. Some demanded that be arrested for treason. But others stayed quiet. Others remembered their own exhaustion, their own loneliness, their own forgotten dreams. Stepped forward, all eyes turned to her. She was the second strongest commander in the fleet. Her word carried weight. "I stand with," she said clearly. "I have watched these humans closely. I have recorded everything. And I have sent those recordings back home to our families, to our people. They deserve to see what we have seen. They deserve to know that there is another way." Young spoke next. His voice was small, but in the silence everyone heard him. "I have never known peace," he said. "I have never known family. I have never felt joy. But in the past 3 days, a human taught me what those words mean. And I want more than just survival. I want to live." One by one, other soldiers began to speak. Not all of them, not even most, but enough. Captains declared their support for. Ships powered down their weapons. The fleet split in two, those who chose the old way and those who dared to try something new. The ships that remained loyal to the High Council turned and flew away into the stars. They would report as a traitor. There would be consequences, but that was a problem for tomorrow. Today was for something else. 3 months later, the sun rose over Seoul once again. The streets were filled with people just like before. But this time, there were no banners begging for mercy. This time, there were signs of welcome, written in both human languages and Kel symbols. Music played from speakers on every corner. Children ran through the crowds carrying flags of blue and gray, the colors of the new alliance. Commander walked through the United Nations building. He wore no armor now, just simple gray robes. Beside him walked, and beside her walked. They had become friends in the months since the invasion that never happened. In the great assembly hall, world leaders sat waiting. Minyu stood at the podium, wearing the same kind smile he had worn on the day he first stepped onto the alien flagship. Walked to the front of the room. He looked out at the hundreds of faces watching him, human faces, faces he had once been ordered to destroy. He bowed, the deep bow of respect that Minyu had taught him. "I came to your world with warships," he said. "I was ready to take everything from you, but you did something no one has ever done before. You welcomed me. You showed me kindness when I deserved none. You taught me that even the mightiest empire is nothing without a reason to live." He paused and looked at Minyu. "You defeated us," he said, "not with weapons, with compassion, and I am grateful." The room erupted in applause. That evening, Minyu stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. In the distance, Kel's ships hung peacefully in the clouds, no longer enemies but partners. Walked up beside him. She looked tired but happy. "Did you ever think this would work?" she asked. Minyu was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. "Every moment I was afraid it would fail. I thought they would kill us before we finished our first cup of tea." He laughed softly. "But I also knew that if we were going to die, I wanted our last act to be one of love. I wanted the universe to remember humans as the species that chose kindness over hatred, even at the end." He looked up at the Kel ships in the sky. It turns out, that was the one weapon they had no defense against. Smiled and took his hand. Together, they watched the first stars appear in the twilight sky. Above them, human and Kel ships floated side by side, carrying the promise of a future that no one had imagined possible. The war that should have ended humanity became the beginning of something new. And it all started with a smile.